Right, let's try that again. It has taken far too long for me to get started on this series. I think for a while I was just put off by Yakuza's more gritty nature, and I've never been a fan of mob-style movies or the genre in general. Yeah, it's got wacky moments, but it's also known for not pulling punches either, ironic really considering Yakuza has many occasions where the characters throw hands. But I finally decided to take the dive in 2025, and damn, I think I have found the next long-running series that I'll be sinking a stupid amount of hours into. Yakuza 0 was the perfect starting point to get me into the mindset of what the series is all about, an optimal balance of hilarity and maturity. In particular, it's got a great mix of sentimental and hype moments spread throughout its fairly lengthy story, and I was on board from around the third hour. I don't think I'll be playing the games back to back because that's a surefire way to burn out, but I'm on board the train now, and I've got a long, excitable journey ahead of me, of that I'm sure. Yakuza 0 begins in the late 80s during Japan's boom period, where property in particular was continually growing in price before the bubble inevitably bursts in the following years. Even so, the game takes property ownership or land ownership as a core fulcrum of its story and is centered around a central area of land known as the Empty Lot. This lot is slap bang in the middle of a planned redevelopment project, and the Tojo clan want to gain ownership of it in order to profit. In the midst of this story are two protagonists, Kazuma Kiryu, a young member of the Kazuma family that operates as a subsidiary under the Dojima family, and an exiled Yakuza, Goro Majima, who currently is forcibly working at the Cabaret Grand in Osaka as part of his punishment. The story proceeds in chapters, jumping between the individual plots of each lead before they inevitably converge later down the line. So first off, the story. It's brilliant. It's extremely well crafted, with each route being engaging in their own way. The build up to each of the climaxes is top notch to me. I was drawn into the mystery, the various factions at play, and it just got better as the hours passed. It certainly helped too that the two leads are badass. Don't get me wrong, Kiryu is awesome in his own right, but if I had to choose, I'm giving the slightest of nods to Majima just because of how he's introduced.
お前さんのその心構え気に入ったわこいつはおごりやたーんともいいどうや神様からのお恵みはありがとうございます私はこの酒を一度浴びるように飲んでみたかったのですがおかげさまで夢が叶いました
Yeah, he rules, but like I say, both leads are top notch, unique from each other, they develop in believable ways and you really feel the weight and pressure of the situations they find themselves in, complemented by good writing and well done cinematography. I also have to give props to the supporting characters too, who have various moments in the spotlight themselves. They don't just sit by and watch the main characters go to town. And what I really appreciate about Yakuza 0 is that there's a lot of bad characters here. I don't mean badly written, I just mean bad, or at least morally questionable, like the kind of person you don't want to meet in a back alley while sloshed on Stella. And while some are pushed towards a redemption of sorts, it's never fully realised. I always got the feeling that the focus of the redemption, the person, was still very flawed, with a history that can't be brushed under the rug so easily. But I like that, because I don't expect full-on redemption in a game like this. And if we're talking about the Japanese underworld here, it thematically makes sense that characters don't become morally good overnight. They're complex and layered individuals in their own rights. I should highlight though that the lack of an English dub could be a problem for some, it never has been for me. I generally prefer using Japanese voiceovers, but it should be mentioned. It goes without saying though that the voice acting is superb, as it generally is from a Japanese lineup of voice actors.
真剣な金貸しとはいえ同情するぜまあそんなことはどうでもいい理由がどうあれ仇をやっちまったっつうことはどう幕を引くかだが
ちょっと待ってください俺は
ジタバタすんじゃねえ安心しろ仇ったって相手も借金まみれのクズだ臭い飯7、8年食えば事は収まる
Now to proceed this story, Majima and Kiryu are given mostly free reign of the regions of Kamurocho in Tokyo and Sotenbori in Osaka. They're fairly small areas when you just look at the maps alone, but they are densely packed with a bunch of shops, restaurants, and indeed hooligans that roam the streets that will often try to get in your way. Admittedly, this was one of my minor annoyances with the game. The gangs intercepting me as I moved around the town trying to do other objectives was a bit of a pain. Granted, there is a mechanic later on in the game that allows you to throw money around and avoid it entirely, so there's at least a remedy. But that's not a negative against the combat itself. It's not the highlight of the game for me, but it's still good. Yakuza 0 uses an action-based approach. Of course, this was before the change was made to turn-based combat in Like a Dragon. Both Kiryu and Majima have 3 separate stances they can switch between with their own advantages. For instance, the breaker style of Majima's is ideal for large groups of enemies. And though it starts off simple enough, it's actually a deceivingly deep system, mostly because of the sizable skill trees attached to each, which give either new moves to work with or passive boons like health increases. What's really cool about these skill trees though is that to unlock the higher tiers you need to get involved in the side content, and there's really no reason why you shouldn't be checking this out. Initially there are a bunch of side stories sprinkled throughout the districts, and they're pretty good all said and done. The actual content of the side quest is of a fairly high quality and covers a range of themes from the hilarious to the mature. In one moment you could be teaching a dominatrix how to please her clientele, while in others you're helping an estranged mother and daughter reunite. And in addition, I'm pretty certain that there are a few quests here that will be revisited in later games. There are characters in these quests that I firmly believe will have more prominent roles in a sequel, at least based on their position and the way they're introduced. Yakuza 0 is a game that doesn't shy away from the more difficult subjects, even in side content. In a way, they reflect the dark side of society that we know exists, but so often we might want to look away from. It's not all about humour and good times, and Yakuza 0 does have a great balance there. But if we're focusing in on the humour, then look no further than the minigames. Yakuza 0 has some of the funniest minigames I've ever seen. They are a riot, and pretty much became a highlight in of themselves, partly because of how risque some end up being. You've got the tame stuff like karaoke, because of course the Japanese love their singing. Disco, which I was absolutely useless at, but I never got tired of watching Kiryu and Majima bust some moves. There were the Japanese games like Shogi and Koikoi, oh god not Koikoi, and you can even test your skills at the bowling arcade or race model cars. Yeah, this stuff's innocent enough. And then on the other side you've got, I don't even know how to describe it other than softcore porn sections. You can find trading cards around the towns of real women, and if you take them to a certain shop you can get some service. And these aren't in-game models, they are actual present-day porn stars, or at least they were when the game released in 2015. I mean, okay, look, it's not for me, but I appreciate it's there. You've also got some other great stuff like practicing pickup lines only to get stood up. I know Majima and Kiryu are badass in the story, but there's just something humanizing seeing them mess up in these completely ridiculous scenarios.
もしもし。くそ。
But that's not all, because each protagonist also gets a unique minigame for each of them, which basically functions as one big side story. Kiryu becomes a real estate agent and aims to fight back against the 5 tycoons of Kamurocho by building up his property empire, while Majima has the Sunshine Cabaret Club.
お客様。
いらっしゃいませ。
The Cabaret Club minigame is one of my favourite side activities in recent memory. It's such a fun little tangent away from the main story, where you find new hostesses either from the streets or via the side stories themselves, and you can level them up, you can play dress up if you really want to, and it was surprising to see the sub-stories tied to the main hostesses themselves. They were actually really good, and gave each platinum tier hostess her own personality and charm. I spent way too much time on this minigame. Not only was it a great way to get more money for combat upgrades, but it was just fun to play and grow the club from nothing. In fact, I got so enamored with it at one point, I got screwed about 30 hours in. My biggest issue with Yakuza 0 is that it has no autosave feature. Instead, you have to save at these phone boxes that are sparsely spread throughout the districts. This later resulted in a nightmare outcome, which was partially self-inflicted. I was enjoying the Cabaret minigame so much that I didn't bother saving for about an hour and a half. Not normally do I fall into this trap, but it happened this time, and I was punished by the game crashing. It was the only time it happened, but sure enough, I learnt the lesson to save at least every 20 minutes from that point. But when the biggest issue you have is a lack of autosave and a rare technical issue, then I think that's a sure sign that the developer has made a damn good game. In short, I loved Yakuza 0. It exceeded my expectations, and that is saying a lot considering how much praise I know the series gets. Like I said earlier, I won't be playing them back to back, but I imagine I'll at least be playing one entry every 3 months or so. And if you're on the fence on giving the series a go and have similar tastes to me, then you can't go wrong with Yakuza 0. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe for more JRPG content, and consider joining my Patreon if you're interested. Peace.